Back here on the Meat Speak podcast, Brian Schaaf, Chef Tony Biggs, joining us here in the studio, all the way from Johnson and Wales in Charlotte. It's Jerry Lanuza. Now, Jerry, your title at Johnson and Wales is Dean of Culinary Education.
That is correct.
Do you prefer chef, or do you prefer? Because when I hear people referred to as dean, I think of every '80s movie I've ever seen. You know, Dean. And it has like a negative like you're the
Dean Wormer.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So, do you prefer chef?
I generally go by chef. The first year almost that I was the dean, I'd be walking down the hall and people would say, "Dean, and I'd keep walking because who's Dean? I'm Chef Lanuza.
That's right. Dean Fearing, right? So Johnson and Wales, if you are if you're not aware. Johnson Wales has four campuses, I believe, across the country, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so Providence, Rhode Island, Charlotte, Denver, and North Miami. And it is one of the largest culinary schools in the country. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and how ultimately you, I guess, got led to where you're at right now as the Dean of Culinary Education in Charlotte?
Yeah, actually, it's kind of a funny story. When I graduated from the Charleston campus in 1989, and then went to Providence, Rhode Island, and got my bachelor's degree in food service education, which was the one piece of forethought that I had in my life. And after graduation, I started working and ended up at a private member-owned country club in Williamsburg, Virginia. It was a great place. The club at Governor's Land, Two Rivers Country Club at Governor's Land. It was a fantastic facility built on the confluence of the James and Chickahominy River. Beautiful. And I got a call from a colleague that I used to work with when I was a teaching assistant in Rhode Island, and she said that the Norfolk campus was looking for instructors. Could I give them my name? Or could she give them my name? And I said, yeah, I'd been working about 110 hours a week at the club, and that was not a lot of fun. And so I got a call for an interview, and I went down there, and I lived in Williamsburg, and Norfolk was about an hour's drive. And when I got there, I did the interview and drove back and got a call on my machine. There was a message on my answering machine because we didn't have cell phones way back then. And it said, "Come on back, we want to do a second interview." So back in the car I went and drove down, did a second interview with the president of the campus, went back home. There was a call on my machine. "We want to offer you a position." I said, "Score." And here I am. And oddly enough, my colleagues, my classmates, voted me most likely to become an instructor at Johnson and Wales when I was in my associate's degree because I helped tutor them through cost control. And I was like, yeah, y'all are crazy. But here we are, 25 years later. So I've been with the university for 25 years now. Okay. And it's been a fantastic ride.
Yeah. So as you look at Johnson and Wales and some of the changes that it's undergone, specifically probably over the last decade or so, you went to the Charleston campus, yep, as did a lot of people who I know, which is no longer in existence. I mean, how has it been for you to sort of ride that wave and see it come to the point where it is now, where obviously you're held in such high regard in the culinary community? I guess, what has it been for you did you have a little bit of sadness when the Charleston campus closed?
Well, at the time, I was working at the Norfolk campus, and being a graduate of the Charleston campus, yes, I was sad to see it go because Charleston is a fantastic city, and the university had a ton of influence on the food scene there. In Norfolk, we were starting to generate a lot of stimulation on the food scene there, but it was probably less traumatic for the city of Norfolk to see Johnson & Wales go than it was Charleston to see Johnson & Wales go. And so when we closed, I think that was 2006, the Charlotte campus actually opened in 2004. And so we had three different populations. You had the Norfolk people that were moving to Charlotte. Then you had the South Carolina people that were moving to Charlotte because Norfolk and Charleston closed to consolidate into Charlotte. And then you had that third group, which was they had not worked at Johnson & Wales before. And amazingly, we all came together hand in glove, and it was fantastic. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was There was no fighting over, I'm from Norfolk, I'm in Charleston, we did this way, you guys do that way. There was none of that kind of turf war, if you will. The other great thing about it is because it was a relocation, my colleagues and friends moved with you. Mm-hmm. So we automatically had a support system in place. The Charleston people had their support system, and the Norfolk people had their support system, and the new people just, fit into the fold. Yeah. So, yeah,
excellent.
That's how that worked.
Excellent. When you talk about some of those personalities and new people, not every employee, not every professor at Johnson & Wales is a Johnson & Wales graduate. Believe it or not, you let some CIA folks in as well, of which our own Chef Tony is a proud graduate from Hyde Park.
Well, and this is where it becomes friendly, because I don't want, after this podcast, Chef, a ration of Johnson & Wales students calling me up and going, wait a minute, you're so mean, you're so ugly, you're so prejudiced. No, Chef and I are going to have a friendly banter, because you know what? I have hired, but I have to say, when I had cooks and chefs apply for jobs with me, the first thing I would say, where did you graduate? And they go, Johnson & Wales. And I go, okay, I'm not going to hold that against you, all right? I'm not going to hold that against you. And I've had some of the greatest cooks and chefs that I've hired from Johnny Wales, we call him.
Oh, yeah.
Not the outlaw Josie Wales,
right?
Okay, but Johnson & Wales. And I have to tell you, you have spit out a number of great hospitality veterans, and hats off to you guys, because it's amazing.
And I can say the exact same thing about that other cooking school from Johnson & Wales. And
ouch, that hurt.
About half of my faculty are CIA grads, and they are fantastic. And I wouldn't trade them for anything. My department chair is a CIA grad, and she is absolutely the most hardworking woman in culinary education.
You know why? Because those CIA grads are crazy, Chef. I mean, I want to ask you a couple of questions here.
Go ahead.
Do you have a human resources department there now?
Yes,
because
we do.
Back in 89 or 78, I remember cutting my hand and see those scars right there?
Yeah,
That's 12 stitches. I try to put a notch in my belt before I went to Chef Roland Hennon's class. Have you ever heard of that name? Oh yeah, tough guy. You know what he said to me at first? He said, anybody who misses my class is going to fail automatically.
Yep.
I cut my hand. You see those stitches, 12 stitches. But I didn't tell Roland. I just wrapped it up and I went to school. And I'm bleeding. I'm in Fish Kitchen. Now, do you allow this to happen? A guy bleeding in the class and he finishes the class? Chef, come on. Times have changed, right?
Yeah, yes and no. Yes and no. Times have changed. And certainly with the millennial group, things are kindler and gentler these days, for certain. And we have health services now on campus that we never really had before, so they can go see the nurse and get wrapped up and come back to class. But we never really had that, and it was always pack it with cornstarch, wrap it in tape, and keep on moving.
I've seen another trend. I'm glad you brought up millennials, because now I'm seeing a trend that everybody. Okay, so when I went to CIA, you had to have at least a year experience to get into the school. Now I'm seeing everybody who wants to go to culinary school has tattoos. Is this a prerequisite to be a chef these days?
You would think so. Seeing some, if it's not tattoos, it's probably gauges in the earlobes or other forms of facial jewelry. But in all seriousness, no, it's not a requirement. Although the hipster chef is still alive and doing well in the industry, and thankfully for us, that still keeps people knocking at our doors to say, he's a cool chef. I want to be like him, or she's a cool chef. I want to be like her.
Yeah. I love it. I love it.
When you look at some of those chefs who've come through Johnson & Wales, what a laundry list it is. Of course, Emeril is a proud graduate of John. Yeah. Some others who have I'm sure folks have heard of, including Tyler Florence, Sean Brock, Chris Cosentino, Graham Elliott, Andy Husbands, Chris Santos, Michelle Bernstein, and our dear, dear friend, Chef Craig Deal.
Oh, yeah.
The master, with Salumi Yoda, as we would refer to him here within our walls here at the office. There's so much going on in the industry at the restaurant level, and there's a lot of chefs who've been through and gone through the rigors, and the first thing they'll tell you is, one, there's not enough kitchen help. Two, the kitchen help that is available, these kids come out of culinary school and they expect their own Food Network show and an executive chef job. And then on the flip side, there are students who are saying, well, I can't go to culinary school because I graduate and then I'm looking at a line cook job that at best is going to pay $15 an hour, I guess. Can you talk us through how you guys have been able to and continue to navigate some of those dynamics with students, with the expectations, and with what some of those programs are to find students homes that ultimately will hopefully launch them, into the careers that, they're expecting when they come out?
I will speak for Johnson & Wales on this, but I think it's probably the same at the Culinary Institute as well. We are both premium offerings in the market. And when you apply to Johnson, well, I've always said you could go to Bob's Cooking School and get a good education if Bob is a great teacher. Mm-hmm. And you can even go to the School of Hard Knocks and still get a great culinary education if you're very strategic about where you work and who you work for. Going to a school such as Johnson & Wales hopefully allows you to move up the ladder of success faster than the School of Hard Knocks. But also part of coming to Johnson & Wales is not just the culinary education, but it's the networking, it's the facilities, it's the contacts, it's the 95 to 100,000 alumni that you can rely on to help you get to those better earning potential jobs. But regardless of what you do, everybody has to pay their dues. Mm-hmm. And if you come out of cooking school thinking that you're going to be, the best thing since melted butter, you probably got another thing coming, and the chef that you told that to is going to have no problem telling you why you're wrong.
Yeah.
I've always told students, I said, God forbid I'm crossing the street and get hit by a bus. And I go to the emergency room, and there's 2 doctors in there that I can choose from. The guy who graduated medical school last week, or the guy who's been coming in every day for the last 20 years to do my surgery. Who am I going to pick? I'm picking a guy with the experience. I'm not picking the kid that just came out of school.
Exactly, Chef. That's, you and I both know that when we submit a resume, and if and I've met a lot of guys from School of Hard Knocks, and they're fantastic, but like to your point, the cream rises to the top, and who are they going to look at? They're going to look at somebody that graduated CIA or Johnson & Wales or other culinary schools around the world, and you're going to get first shot. Let's face it.
Yeah. Is there a general understanding, do you sense, among your students where they kind of start to see that, they start to understand that, this is a degree. At the end of the day, even when I come out of here, though, I'm still going to have to get through.
Pay your dues.
Yeah.
Pay your dues.
There is still that, we're not talking about, a kid graduating from the London School of Economics just going into a $100,000 a year job. If you are in this for, I guess, the right motivations as to why you actually want to be a chef, is there a general understanding among those kids, maybe even more so now than there were 5-10 years ago?
If there isn't when they come in, there is by the time they graduate. Again, I'll say that, we do a fair share of dream crushing on the front end, because someone someone will come in and say, okay, when I graduate in 2 years, I'm going to open my own restaurant, and it's like, well, that's probably not going to happen. Can you open your own restaurant someday? Absolutely. But it's going to take a lot of work. And by the way, you have to take math and English.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, what do you mean? I came here to culinary school. Well, math counts when you're trying to get some money from someone to invest in an operation.
Chef, speaking of math, you mentioned something earlier that a lot of folks and a lot of kids just overlook, and breeze over, but it's food cost. And I'm glad you said what you said. I mean, it sounds like your background is really food costing. And, chefs, they believe in, the food world is art. But if you're not making the money on that plate and you're going out and you don't know what you're putting on that plate and how much it costs, these are times where you have to pay attention to that, right, Chef?
Absolutely. I used to teach a purchasing and product identification, and in the purchasing class, every chef instructor at every culinary school teaches the most important class in the curriculum. Just ask them. Nobody can graduate without taking my course. And to a certain extent, that's true because they're all important. But, in the purchasing class, we had to understand that, first of all, this is a tomato, not an apple, or this is a tomato and not a tomatillo, or whatever the case may be. But not only that, it's money. Mm. And, you had to spend money to get that thing on your table. And now you need to turn that thing into something that's worth 3 times what you paid for it.
Yeah.
And that's when people go, oh, yeah. And when something leaves without being sold, whether it was stolen, whether it was spoiled, whether it fell on the floor, and you have to throw it away, you got to replace that thing 3 times. Yeah. You lose money 3 times. You have the cost of the product itself. Then you have the cost of the replacement because you can't not serve that item. And then you have the revenue that you never saw from the first one that fell on the floor. So by, that one thing going away without being paid for, then, it's a no-win scenario. Yeah. And I think there's, this is not empirical data, but I would say that I think a lot of restaurants, there's very few restaurants that have failed because the food wasn't good.
Yeah.
There's a ton of restaurants that has failed because people didn't do the numbers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Chef would be good at our CAB yield testing. We should, my gosh, right?
I think so.
Wow. We teach that here, Chef.
Right.
Yield, yeah. From box to purge to plastic. We teach them how much is that steak going to cost on a plate after you've weighed, purged, the box, the whole thing. Absolutely. And that's what we do here with all our a lot of our groups. So kudos to you, Chef.
Yeah. AP versus EP. It's, unbelievable.
Excellent. Since we do have a rare opportunity where we have a professor and graduate from Johnson & Wales in the room, we have a proud graduate of the Culinary Institute of America in the room, and not one punch has been thrown yet. So I'm very proud of you both.
Chef.
Right, but there has to be some level of competition, I think, that we have to make sure we settle. So I hope if you guys are willing to participate, I have pulled some questions that I would like to pose, and we'll just figure out who's.
Chef, referees are really in trouble in the NFL these days. And if Brian's going to be the referee, we have carte blanche to mug him in this studio. All right,
I'm down. I'm down.
All right, I don't even know how many questions.
He's hiding the questions too. Right. I mean, oh my gosh, we're in trouble.
I didn't want anybody to peek. Right. All right. First, 1996. There was a milk-based product the USDA Ag Department proposed as a substitute for meat in school lunches. What was it?
Yogurt.
Well, it was a protein. Yeah, that could have. Protein. Yeah, yogurt's a protein.
Okay. Next, black-eyed peas are not peas. What are they?
Beans. Well, they're legumes. Well, peas are legumes.
Legumes.
Next, what part of the banana is used to make banana oil?
The skin.
I would agree.
What was margarine called when it was first marketed in England?
Ghee.
Oleo.
Oleo, yes.
Okay. What are the 2 top-selling spices in the world?
Salt and pepper. Is that considered a spice?
Okay.
Pepper and cinnamon.
Cinnamon.
Okay. What is the most widely eaten fish in the world?
Cod.
Wow. I was going to say salmon, but you got me on cod. Like I think I'm from New England. We eat a lot of cod up there, Chef.
Scrad.
Boston Scrod, right? Okay, he said cod, but I'm going to go with salmon.
Okay. I thought the answer was sticks, by the way.
Sticks?
Mrs. Paul's, yeah.
But
All right, 3 more questions, right? What is the name of the evergreen shrub that gives us capers?
Oh, that's a good one,
that's the
Brian.
caper bush.
Caper bush?
Okay.
You said evergreen. Caper bush.
Okay.
Yeah.
2 left. What fruits were crossed to produce a nectarine?
A peach and a
Tangerine.
peach and tangerine. That makes sense because of the color.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And lastly, what animal's milk is used to make authentic Italian mozzarella?
Water buffalo.
Buffalo.
All right. You know what's funny is both of you got the questions correct, all the same, and you both missed the exact same questions all the way down through. It's a virtual tie.
Chef!
All right.
Yes!
Boom.
So just so you know, yogurt was correct, legumes was correct. No part of the banana is actually used to make banana oil. It's a
Okay.
synthetic compound that's
Okay.
named because of its banana-like aroma. Margarine was actually called butterine in England.
Butterine.
The top
okay.
2 selling spices in the world, pepper and mustard. Right? The
okay.
most widely eaten fish in the world, it was not Mrs. Paul's, it's actually the herring.
And
The herring. Oh, wow.
Right? Caperbush was correct. What fruits are crossed to produce a nectarine? None. A nectarine is actually a variety of a peach.
Okay.
How about that?
Yeah, we got peach right.
And
Right.
lastly,
Yeah.
y'all nailed fresh, authentic mozzarella comes from water buffalo. So there you go. As unscientific as we can get, dead heat tie between Johnson & Wales, Culinary Institute of
Okay, I
It's
take
it's-
it.
It ruins my joke. I can't tell my favorite joke anymore.
Oh, I'm sorry.
How do you get a CIA grad off your porch?
How's that?
Pay him for the pizza. Ba-dum-bum. I tease because I love. Come on.
Hey, Chef, I want to ask you a question. So, this is our new podcast. What messages would you like us to share with the hospitality world? This is what we do. We don't always talk about meat.
Right.
We talk about, we bring you in from your perspective. We bring chefs in. We're going to Grand Cayman. We're going to do the Cayman Cookout, interview Jose Andres. And what messages do you think this podcast could help hospitality industry leaders moving forward?
You know, as we move into 2020, Johnson & Wales in particular, we are changing the way we do things a little bit, and we are creating the College of Food Innovation and Technology. So we are going to leverage our history and brand recognition on food and try to push that forward into, you know, the next generation of food innovation. So I think that if we can get the message to people that it's beyond just cooking and going to work in a hotel or a club, that there is an interdisciplinary approach to food these days, and there's a great deal that can be done to solve some of the world's hunger problems, agriculture problems, and hopefully that's something that we can impact at Johnson & Wales. So I would say the wish would be to get people to think outside the box and continue the message of, you know, be innovative and let's try to help each other out.
That's beautiful, Chef.
Excellent. Well said, Chef. Chef Jerry Lanuza, Dean of Culinary Education from Johnson & Wales Charlotte campus. We appreciate you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us in the studio here today, sir. Thank you all.
Chef, hats off. Love you, baby. You know, even though you're from Johnny Wales, the outlaw Johnny Wales, we still love you, and come back again to see us.
I appreciate it, Chef, and I'm in awe of this facility, and I love certified Angus beef and the work that you guys do. Thank you very, very much for hosting us.
Thank you, Chef.
Thank you, Chef.